Hi everyone, welcome back to another live. I'm in a new office and trying to get the lighting and everything correct today, so we'll see how it goes. See how my internet can be a little patchy in here, so we'll work through it. As always, thank you so much for being here. Always excited to show up. There's so much to unpack and cover today, so we're going to cover quite a bit. Now, obviously, with the thumbnail, we're really kind of trying to cue into today's world, right? Like, does it make sense to make job changes now? Yes or no? We're obviously probably going to spend a lot of time today covering what's going on with the Google hiring freeze. I got a ton of data coming in this week about the freeze, so we'll probably start there. I'll share just a few critical data points that I have, and I think this all kind of correlates and ties back to like, what is the timing for moving, and does it make sense to make a career change with everything that's going on in the world and all these big tech companies, especially having these freezes. So let me just take a really, really quick step back. And then again, we'll dive into some of the details that I've been able to unpack over the last week for you. And then obviously we'll cover probably a lot of comments about the Google hiring freeze, and that's all par for the course, right? Part of what's top of mind for a lot of people coming into these lives. If you've never been here before, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. The business is practiceinterviews.com. We do interview coaching, negotiation coaching, and offering a $100 discount till 11:59 Pacific time today. You don't want to miss out on this. It's for our interview mastery course. If you use the code ACE, A-C-E, you get $100 off just today. So let's talk about what's going on. What's going on is that we're getting more and more data coming in about this Google hiring freeze. So let me just spend a moment. Let's go through it for about 30 seconds to a minute, highlighting what's come up over the last week. So from my negotiation clients, about half of them have told me that they've started to trigger and push the process forward, although nobody's really bumped up to that next step. So they're getting indications this week, hey, your offer, your job has been prioritized, so we're going to go ahead and start moving forward. And a lot of that moving forward sounds like it's going to start happening middle of next week. The date that I've heard is the 16th. Again, this is coming from one source. So that's what I've heard from one area. On the Slack group, we did have, sorry, it looks like we're having some trouble streaming to LinkedIn. So I'm actually going to remove this from LinkedIn. So if you are on LinkedIn now, please hop over to YouTube. So we're just going to remove this destination. Sorry, everybody, for this quick hiccup. We're just going to go ahead and, well, I'm not going to do anything. Just going to let it go. So the 16th, a lot of people who are in the offer stage, we're getting indications that we're getting some indications that next week for the offers, some people have been told that they're moving forward. It sounds like for other roles, they don't have their act together yet, right? And this is pretty much, again, par for the course. Like, we knew that it was going to take some time to get these things going. So we're not going to worry about that too much in terms of what we can control and can't control. We're just going to have to sit and wait. I did hear from somebody in APAC, and they're saying they were specifically for Tokyo, and they said that in APAC, they were told that levels 3 through 5 had been deprioritized. So that's another data point. We also have a data point that Google dropped off about a fifth of their positions trending wise. So there were about 5,000 open roles on the website. It looks like they dropped off about 1,000 of them. We have also heard some messaging about L3 SWEs being put on hold. So if it's L3 SWEs, that might impact L4 software engineers as well. So we'll just have to wait and see. This is some of the data points that I have. As I think of more and we come into this, I wanted to be a little bit more organized, but those are the 3 or 4 critical data points I had. There's obviously a lot of fear, a lot of gloom and doom, a lot of stuff I can't control when it comes to the Google hiring freeze, but we'll talk about it today. And I want you to feel really comfortable. We'll get the same question multiple times. That's okay, right? I just want to put everybody at ease with any data that I can introduce. If you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. I go live every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, and it's a new content video every other Tuesday. Okay, so we're going to dive into the questions. As always, I will get to every question. I take them in order. I usually get behind. I usually have to play catch up a little bit. So just be patient. No need to double up on questions. And then lastly, like any data you have that you can add value to the community, we really appreciate that. This is a community platform, so we're here to help each other out. Okay, let's dive in. Thank you again for being here. So in line with today's topic of the live, is this a good time to switch to Google? I mean, yeah, I think it is. And I think that you should be interviewing. Now, there's been some data that there could be some layoffs too. There was some sort of internal communication coming from Sundar that, they're trying to really see how they can optimize for jobs. Are they going to have layoffs? This came in as a question in the Slack group. Maybe. But I don't know. I'm not believing it, but I think there could be a couple product areas where you see maybe a little bit of a slimming down. If they have to do it, they're going to do it. Remember, they are responsible for their shareholders and to the board. And so layoffs, there is some potential for that. So we're just going to have to keep an eye on that. But let's say you actively reach out or you apply or you go in the interview process. I mean, going through that process can't hurt. So I do recommend it. Can you brief me about the scope at which L5 TPM operates at Google? How does the scope change at L6? Also, what does an L5 need to do to get promoted to 6? So really the way I experienced the job at Google, and I think most people would tell you the same, the scope is pretty similar at these levels. Like if you're an L4 TPM or an L3 TPM and you have the bandwidth and you can take it on, they're going to give you as much as you can take. The difference between a 5 and a 6 is that is moving into the upper band where likely they might start to put you in more of a leadership position where you have direct reports if you're interested in taking on something like that. Now the promo to 5 to 6 is a jump. Your bonus percentage goes up. It is seen as more of a leadership driven role. So, at least a couple of years typically to get there. And obviously my strong recommendation is that you build that cadence and path with your hiring manager. Talk about setting and creating the plan to promotion. You can only get there with the plan. So I strongly recommend that. I hope that helps. Good to see you. Any news of the unfreeze? Do you know if they've rolled out any offers post last week? Yeah, so actual pushing through offers. I have a number of negotiation clients who are kind of in the pause scenario, and a lot of them are being told that things are going to push through next week. That's what we're being told. So we're just going to believe that that's the case. So hopefully we'll get some more movement next week and maybe we'll make that a primary focus of the live, even though, again, the live will just be whatever questions come in. So we're getting some positive signs that they do have some alignment on prioritization of some of these roles. And I think they've probably prioritized X percentage and they're still trying to work out some of the other ones. Because remember, there's going to be battles. There's going to be hiring managers that are really fighting for their headcount. Good for them. But that's going to take a while to play out. So I don't even think everything will be done next week. Thanks for the content. Could you share what the expected comp range for AI Cloud Architect Consultant L4, L5 for Buenos Aires? Okay, so Johnny, here's the thing with Buenos Aires, and for anybody in this audience who doesn't know, if you think inflation in the US is bad, like Buenos Aires, I know all about this because it's basically my favorite city in the world. It is going through just this crazy inflation time. I just strongly want you to do your research. Look at what software engineers are being paid in the Buenos Aires market. And for an AI cloud architect consultant, you're going to make about 75% of what they're making. The trickiest thing is the actual base pay and all that pay, and then converting the USD of stock. And it's rough. I did have a negotiation client in Buenos Aires earlier this year. It was either early this year or late last year. And we found it to be very, very challenging. Now, we did definitely negotiate and get more in every facet from base to equity to a sign-on. But it is just because of the conversion rates and inflation in Buenos Aires, it's a very, very tricky market right now, as I'm sure you know. So just levels.fyi, see what software engineers are making, 0.75, but your market's so tricky right now. And feel free to come back and share more, but I know that there's some major challenges happening in Buenos Aires right now. These live sessions are game changer. Okay, awesome. Between RRK2, GCA, and L&G, leadership and googliness, or googliness and leadership, where should I expect questions like, tell me about yourself and YG, in any of those interviews? That is really interviewer driven. So some interviewers like to do a warm up, some don't. So it actually doesn't really, it's not interview dependent, it's interviewer dependent. And so, like, if I was going to interview you, I would never ask you those questions. I just, I have a funny story, and I'll implement it really quickly. So I used to do mostly GCA interviews. I don't think that would surprise anybody. And so basically, I would come in, the candidate would sit across from me, or we'd be via video, and I would say, look, let's dive right in. I'm going to ask you a really hard question, but I'm here to support and help you throughout this process. And then I would just dive in. So it's kind of setting the tone, not to create fear, to let them know that the question was hard and that I was there to support them. And that's kind of how I dove in. So it just really is interviewer dependent. So again, I would never ask those questions. Now, as a recruiter, if you were coming in, I would ask you maybe a little bit more about yourself, your background, and why Google, but not in an actual interview. Yeah, yeah, and yes, with Eirik. And anybody who doesn't know, Eirik's, it's good to see Eirik back. He's been back the last couple of weeks. Eirik and I worked together for about a year and a half and really helped grow the platform. So thank you, Eirik. But yeah, again, it's really going to be interview specific. And then, like Eirik said, googliness and leadership is mostly behavioral. And RRK, it really does depend on the role, right? So it can be behavioral, it can be technical based if it is a technical based position, and obviously that technical could be very domain focused, especially if it's less technical. Okay, let's bring in our live topic. If you do switch jobs, especially for a startup, do a deep dive into the financials to understand the runway and if the company is profitable. And then let's go to the second piece. And then for the top tech companies, go read analyst reports on stock to see overall forward guidance, then make sure you're working on the essential and more profitable department. Okay, so let's go back to this. With startups, especially the smaller startups, while we don't want to be too challenging in our questions initially, if they do decide to hire us, we really do want to understand financial runway, understand some of these concepts, and that can be a tough question to ask, but we have to understand the viability, especially because, we hear all this like hiring freeze and gloom and doom with these big tech companies, but the reality is that startups are getting hurt really bad by this too, right? So like these big companies, they're a little more insulated, they're a little bit more protected, but the smaller companies, there can be some challenges, so you really want to know. And then yes, on the financials, I mean, when we think about like Google, for instance, I mean, there are just certain roles that I'm never not going to hire for, right? Like, and the two biggest ones are, I'm not going to back off of hiring for ads or GCP. These are my revenue generators, especially ads. That makes my money. So what's closest to the money? And then like some more like strategic roles. Like, am I going to stop hiring like software engineers? No, because they're the fuel and they run the business. Am I going to stop hiring really specific hot roles right now? Like ML, AI, product, UX design, UX research. These are some of the hottest roles in the world right now. So ideally, I'm going to keep hiring those positions as well. And then what do I look at from a strategic standpoint? Like the higher the level, the more maybe somebody can contribute. Now, obviously that varies person to person, and that's a very, very broad generalization, but it's just something to think about. Okay. Thanks for that. Hi, Jeff. Hope all is well. You interviewed for an AM role, account manager role, and okay. But after screening around, haven't heard from a recruiter. Have they moved on? It's been 2 weeks. I would definitely follow up. Yeah, so time to follow up and just check in. And if you haven't, and if you have, check in again. So the cadence, if we don't hear back, is like we reach out once a week with graciousness and kindness, and we do it again and again and again. And then if we have another point of contact, after 3 to 4 weeks, we'll start to reach out to them. But just continue to do it. If I hadn't heard back in 8 weeks, I would send that email every week, just so they're getting poked and poked and poked and poked by me. And I would be nice every single time, because eventually hopefully they'll just respond and they'll get so annoyed from hearing from you. So, but at 2 weeks, you're all right. Just definitely follow up if you haven't. And if you have, follow up again. Thanks so much for the valuable content. Do you know if UX design role at L4 would survive the hiring freeze? Yeah, so I'm not sure if it was you or somebody else. We're getting a lot of questions about UX. And so for me, like to me, this is a critical facet of the business, right? Like the user experience, this is a user-driven business model, period. And so those roles seem to be a little bit safer. I can't say for sure, but in my opinion, I want to make sure the users have an absolutely fantastic experience. So it's something that I would be driving towards. Absolutely. So again, I think it's a less likelihood. I can't say for sure. And again, at L4, this is where it gets a little, it gets a little dicey from what we've heard. L3 or L4, and a little bit of a slowdown on those. If you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. Thank you. Hey, Jeff, I interviewed for interaction design role L5 with Google India. The final interview was last Friday. Monday, you were informed about the freeze. Okay. Any idea how badly Google India and or design org will be impacted by this? Also, how long is our candidature valid? Okay, I like the second question. Yeah, the overall, I can't say for sure. I don't know for sure. And how India is being impacted, I know I haven't really seen a difference in that market from what I've seen. And again, I really like design, right? Like these design roles, the research roles, they've just been really hot. I've really been able to drive up the negotiation and comp for those types of clients, which is just showing me what the market is bearing. So I would hope that they would move forward, but we're just going to have to wait and see. It's kind of weird for them to interview and then say, hey, the freeze is happening. It's like, yeah, we know the freeze is happening. So what's going on with these roles? And obviously always pushing and prompting and prodding to get as much clarity as we can. And Jeff, GL5 stuck in the stage where the team selected me. My offer was going to be sent. Hiring pause was announced. A few days later, the team manager wrote me directly, confirming he was interested. No news from the recruiter for almost 3 weeks. Does it make sense to ping the team manager, or should I ping my recruiter, or wait? Yeah, ping your recruiter. Why they wouldn't reach out to you for 3 weeks? Again, we're just constantly trying to help them evolve and fix their organizational skills, because they should be just touching base with you once a week. It's so easy. So reach out now. Is now the time to leave a secure state job, full benefits for a passion career? So much of making these moves is based on a lot of different factors. And, last week I did that kind of TVC to FTE, and should you leap for a contractor role, like that would be the bigger risk if it's not full time. It really depends on your scenario. Like, what's your flexibility in terms of like children and real strong need for benefits and like relo and all these things that could potentially go into making that move are all factors. But if you can stay in your same market, obviously that's a big likelihood and increase of success. And yeah, it's really a personal decision. I mean, I think the Google brand is what I'll always fall back on, the value of that. And obviously nobody knows the value of that brand better than I do. So it's something to consider, and just obviously be watching the timing and watching what's going on with the economy. And we always want to track that as closely as we can. I know that really didn't answer your question, but I hope it helps. Hi, Jeff. Will the ongoing hiring freeze affect companies hiring interns in the summer of 2023? Yeah, I can't really say. It's just a little too far away. We're talking about a year out, and even that hiring process won't happen until next year. So we're just going to have to sit back and wait. I mean, I would think that interns, apprenticeships, associate roles would be impacted because they're lower level. But for 2023, summer of 2023, it's a little far out right now. So we'll continue to monitor and track it. Okay, I made it through all the rounds of interviews for an interaction design role. And should I expect an offer? Okay. I don't know if we answered the same question, but yeah, I mean, again, I'm not sure for this specific position if it's going to be a yes or no. Okay. but I like design. I think design's pretty hot. Okay, I'm not sure where the first half of that comment's coming from. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for the great content. Absolutely. Any suggestion or tips on how to deal with RRK for a TAM role? Yeah, the RRK2 for a TAM is a case study. It's an hour. They give you a case study. They give you 15 minutes to prep, and then a half an hour to present, and then 15 minutes for Q&A is the typical setup. We've seen this year that's leaning towards like take a brick and mortar company online. That's the one example we've seen used this year. Good luck. By the way, Google Recruiter got in touch with me last month, and you have your interview scheduled for 8/29. All right, Lawrence, amazing. Yeah, they're definitely moving forward with lots of interviews. We're still seeing a lot of that. I mean, it's still slower for sure, but we are seeing a lot of interviews move forward. Last week, you mentioned UXR as a hot role. I don't doubt it, but I'm wondering what makes you say this and what this means for the short term. So, okay, so what I mean by hot is obviously I have a pretty good pulse of what's going on in the job market for big tech, right? And what I mean by hot is I see a real increase in clients coming to me for these types of roles. So that's an indication that it's hot because it's not really random. Like the more roles I get, it's likely that there's a push towards this. And it's really hot when I say that from a comp perspective, because some of the comps that we've been able to get for people in this space, like especially I've had a couple UX research clients where we've really been able to drive up comp. And when comp starts approaching ranges that surprise me, it tells me that the demand in the market is high. These are the data points I have. Are they totally 100% absolutely factual? Maybe not, right? So, but this is the data that I have and what I'm seeing, and that's why I'm calling them hot. And I think maybe also I'm a little biased because I think they're really fun roles. It's not my skill set, but I think they're really, really fun roles. I asked the recruiter about the freeze, and he said, we're waiting for an update. Should I take it as my feedback were positive? I assume they would say no without keeping me wait otherwise. I would assume that as well. Why keep you hanging out if you really didn't do well in the interview? So my best guess is that, yeah, for anybody who didn't do well, they're just going through the normal rejection process. But for anybody who they're still considering, they're keeping tabs on you, keeping you updated. So yeah, I would imagine that that's a good sign. My girlfriend is joining Meta without a team match in place, boot camp first, then match. Should I be worried about the role being rescinded if she can't find a team? She's already given her 2 weeks. No, this is really, really common. If she's going in for boot camp first and then the team match, this is just their standard process at Meta. And that's for definitely for a software engineer. Can you expound on the Google rule saying you can't engage in on-site interviews more than once a year? Does it only apply to engineering opportunities or non-engineering opportunities? So there is no like hard, fast rule. Like what I mean by that is there's no like system locking, right? So you could absolutely interview for the same role within less than a year. It's typical that they have you wait about a year. Now they might reach out to you sooner. So that's common. You can absolutely apply an interview for a different role, same time. You could get rejected and literally interview for another role the same week or the next week. It's just obviously not that common, but it does happen. But it's not like concrete. It's not a locked in stone rule. Interviewing for a PM position with GCP, level 6 based out of MSP. What should I be thinking for base pay anchor? Based out of, what's MSP? Yeah, it's just so much easier. Sorry, everybody. I'm not good with abbreviations. This is why I don't recommend using them just in general and definitely in the interview, because I see MSP and I'm like, I don't know what that means. So yeah, if you can come back and tell me. And then we never anchor on base pay. We anchor on total comp. I don't understand if they send me a job opening by themselves, so why they never reply back. It's annoying. Totally. I absolutely 100% agree. If somebody's really reaching out and being proactive and they're not getting back to you, that can be frustrating. I'm with you. What's the multiplier for UXR? Sweet. 0.9, 0.8, UXR. And so, yeah, I think I think based on what I'm seeing these days, 0.9 or more. Yeah, it's getting closer for sure. You're the man. All right. I interviewed first 2 weeks, freeze time frame. Got this from a recruiter team. Very pleased with your performance. I wanted to let you know that Google has reprioritized recruiting efforts, which has slowed the hiring process. The role is still open, just paused. I don't know when we can resume. Could be a week or two. Just a data point, solutions consultant role. All right, Brady, thanks. Yeah. It's just like Google says they're going to go on a hiring freeze for 2 weeks, right? And let's call this what it is. This is a huge global company. They did this globally. So like to say we're going to get our act together in 2 weeks, it's just totally unreasonable. Now, I think there can always be better processes, like the fighting for headcount internally. I saw it personally. It's brutal. And so I think a lot of that's probably going on right now. But yeah, I think you just got to stay patient. And remember, just always the cadence. Always be poking your recruiter in a friendly way. Check in every couple weeks, month. And obviously the best path is to say, hey, how often can I check in with you? What's your preference? That's usually the best path. But good luck. Keep us posted. Okay, and this is a solutions consultant for customer service tools. Interesting. Okay. Thanks for the content, Jeff. Any ideas interaction design has been affected? Haven't heard from our recruiter in 2 weeks, but I'm progressing ahead with Amazon. Okay, D. So yeah, I don't know. Thinking that interaction design has a higher likelihood of not being deprioritized, but you absolutely should reach out to your recruiter and say, hey, just checking in. Also, just wanted to keep you updated on what else I have going on. Specifically, I'm progressing with Amazon. I'm at the virtual onsite stage. I've completed my virtual onsite. I'm getting an offer. Remember, that could help motivate or push them a little bit. I got rejected for 2 roles at Google after a recruiter reached out. I'm not sure if I should try again or just wait for them to reach out. Yeah, I mean, I always like taking the proactive approach, own it, and you go after it. I don't want to wait for anybody to reach out to me. I'm always going to get in front of it. So if you're still interested, I would say just continue to get after it. Obviously, networking is a great way to get in. Referrals are a great way to get in. But if you want to apply, you can apply as well. Hi, Jeff. How does Google's university not early career look like for the rest of the year? Was university hiring not early career? Well, okay. So that is what university hiring is, though. That's typically almost always early career. So if you want to come back and ask another question, but usually university recruiter means hiring interns, associates, apprenticeships, etc. Typically. Hi, Brady. I went through the same thing for a similar role. Which country is yours? Okay. Let you guys hash that out. My girlfriend will be joining. Okay. Well, yep. Okay. We answered that one. Again, just no big deal, but no reason to duplicate questions. I'll get to all of them. Okay. Hi, Jeff. Update. Okay. What's the update? The role I interviewed has been removed from both LinkedIn and the Google hiring page. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. Okay. Yeah. And remember, like, we don't need to just overreact to that because sometimes they'll just, in a normal world, they'll pull down posts when they have a really good active pipeline. They feel like they have at least a few candidates and they're going to hire one. So removing posts is not, we can't even really think about that right now. That could be totally that the role's been deprioritized and it's gone, but it could just be that they have a good pipeline too. So it's really hard to know. Obviously, if you want to reach out to your recruiter about it, that's a strong recommendation for me. I got rejected from the RRK round for customer engineer role. Can you reapply for other positions? Absolutely. Now remember that it's a big umbrella, right? So just because it didn't work out for a customer engineer, maybe there's another very different position that you're also a fit for. Usually people going into customer engineering roles have a pretty varied background where they can do lots of different positions. So absolutely, you can reapply for a different role right now. Should your RRK not go well, will G proceed to the onsite or just end the process? So the funkiness that's happened since COVID, right, is that we were so used to like doing this initial phone or video interviews, sometimes two, and then coming on site. But because now everything's virtual and it's like things can be split over days, I think that it just depends. But if one interview really doesn't go well and there's space between that interview and other interviews, as your recruiter, I would just reject, because like one pretty poor interview is usually not going to be enough to move forward. Now, we don't know for sure because we don't have your data and feedback. And sometimes these interviews go better than we think they do. Sometimes interviewers, myself included, can be very, very hard to read. So hopefully, let's just keep a positive, open mindset. And for now, we just don't really know, but that's my overall feedback. Thanks so much for your great videos and interview mastery course that I used to prepare. Awesome. If you use that coupon code ACE, ACE, $100 off that interview mastery course today, okay? Thank you so much for the great videos. Used to prepare for L7, L8 interview at Google. Yesterday, my recruiter told me that you're moving forward to team matching. Okay, great. She asked me to be patient as most teams are lifting the hiring freeze. She scheduled a weekly update cadence. Thank you again. And hope you could use that as a data point. Awesome. Yeah, and I think that, remember, if I'm a good recruiter, if I'm even like a decent recruiter, now we have to put this in the good category because we all know I'm pretty tough on recruiters, and I think I can be because I basically have 15 years of experience in that field. Like every Friday before they leave for the weekend and go do whatever they're going to do, they should be messaging anybody in process and just say, hey, hiring freeze is still active. I'll keep you updated on a weekly basis. And that's what a good recruiter would do. And that's literally what 100% of recruiters should be doing right now. It's so easy, but obviously it's just not happening. Good luck with everything. So on the 30s, I just like to do a quick prompt. Practiceinterviews.com is the business. We do interview coaching. We do negotiation coaching. The negotiation coaching, like we just crush the offers. It's super, super fun. ACE, ACE, to get 100 off the mastery course. It's a great offer that will be available till 11:59 Pacific time today. You don't want to miss out on that. If you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. And if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. All right, back to it. I'm about 20 minutes behind, which is pretty much normal for these live sessions. So I'll continue to chop through everything. Jeff, will the ongoing hiring freeze affect companies? We answered that question. Okay. In talks with another manga and Google recruiters holding off another week or two to get confirmed. If I get an offer while waiting for Google, how to proceed, accept or wait? You want to wait as long as possible, but my strong recommendation during this is to accept. And yeah, I want you to go ahead and accept. And then if you have to burn a bridge, burn a bridge. But we just don't know on this Google timing. And I wouldn't want you to lose out on another opportunity. So that's been the guidance I've been giving. But obviously, it's a huge personal decision. Okay. I was also told by my recruiter that all new offers will not have start dates until Q4. Yes. Okay. For everybody here, if you do accept your offer with Google and they do move forward with your position, you will not be starting till October. And that is, thank you for that. Sorry, I really should have shared that data point. Now, is that really that far off? No, if you were to accept an offer now, they still wouldn't start you till September. So it's really just kind of a small delay. You probably weren't going to get in August anyway. So how they do that with pushing everybody to Q4 and being able to have the onboarding size, class sizes as big as they want, it's going to be really tricky to see how some of this stuff plays out. Backups with compensation, backups with hiring committee. Things are going to move a little slower. So we all just got to, obviously hang in there and be patient. But thanks, Sanjay. That's a good data point that I should have shared. Okay. Hi, Jeff. How does RSUs work for non-American locations? For instance, Europe, London, Paris, Berlin. Should we expect 6 digits at L7? Couldn't find any good data points. So there's a ton of great data points. Levels.fyi, if you haven't used that, for all those markets, London, Paris, Berlin, not as much because Munich's really the bigger office in Germany. I don't know. Berlin might have like a small office. I can't remember, but Munich will be the bigger driver in Germany. So there's tons of data. You just have to look at software engineers and use that as your baseline. But all equity in non-US countries is paid out in USD. So you just want to be working the conversions. If you go to practiceinterviews.com and use the free resources page, you can grab that offer template and use that to guide you in the numbers. And absolutely at an L7, it should be well into the 6 figures of equity. It does depend on your specific role. But yeah, into the hundreds of thousands USD in equity, absolutely. But use levels.fyi, that will be your best friend. Hi, Jeff. Finally caught you on a live. All right, good. Hope you're well. Thank you. What are the chances of getting a level 4 offer after a level 3 interview? All interviews went really well. Yeah, so this is a great question. I think the way to control this is essentially if our recruiter says, hey, congrats, you got approved at L3, say, you know, I was really hoping for L4. Is my feedback strong enough that if I were to do 1 or 2 additional interviews, I could be considered at L4? That's it. They are just straight up going to tell you the viability. They're going to say, you know what, look, no, the feedback really indicated L3, and that's what we're going to move forward with. But they might also say, well, actually, the feedback was strong. Let me see if we can explore that. If there's already a team in place, if there's not a team in place, they could also explore it. But it's just asking that question. That specific question will give you all the data you need. Good luck. Hi, Jeff. I went through all the interviews with Google, and I was told there's a freeze for rearrangements, but I'm see the same role being posted every week. Why would that be? Well, maybe they like you. And they're still exploring other candidates as well. I think it's a fair question. Hey, I see the job still posted. So am I still being considered along with other candidates? Try and get a little bit more clarity from your recruiter. Completed all rounds of interviews. Recruiters told me freeze is still on and not sure about next steps. Have you lost the opportunity? Nope. We're just all going to be waiting and trying to figure it out and see what happens. So just stay patient and stay in touch with your recruiter. Google and team matching phase, considering the current Google hiring slowness, is it a good idea to send recruiter jobs posting that I see as a fit on the career page? I don't want to offend them. Yeah, so dude, which I love that. I would stick with the current role right now. Keep a pulse, keep your eye on these open positions, but stick with the current role for now, would be my recommendation. I was at the hiring committee phase for an analyst position with YouTube, trust and safety, no team matching. I sent my candidate information forms to the recruiter on July 22nd. Okay. And I got this email saying currently we're reprioritizing. Yep, that's the standard email that they've been sending. While it may be a few weeks before I'm able to provide an update. Yep. Okay. So, yep, a lot of people were getting this. Just make sure that you're staying in touch with them. Here's the thing. Again, this would be a position that I would think would be prioritized. Trust and safety for YouTube is huge. And it's so important because YouTube makes money. How? Through all the ads. So I want to make sure that my user experience is extremely high, and trust and safety is such a big part of that. So I would be surprised if trust and safety roles were deprioritized. Okay, so stick with it. Hey, Jeff, in your opinion, if I received we're forwarding your resume to a recruiter email with a referral, okay, this is a referral, I don't know, LAS, I don't know what that is, ads, large account strategist role maybe. However, the job listing is no longer posted. Don't worry about job postings being pulled down. Again, we just can't look into that too much because that's just a common practice in general. So we won't worry too much about that with the freeze piece, okay? Now it could mean the role is potentially gone, but we'll just have to wait and see. Ongoing support, how should I best prepare for my informal 30-minute chat with the hiring manager? Recruiter told you passed all the formal interviews, but this is this last step. Okay, so for hiring manager, we're going to stand. I always stand for these lives, right? So my voice has more pitch, more tone, more energy. You're going to have a great answer to tell me about yourself. You are going to be really active and engaged, good enthusiasm, and then for questions, I really want you to learn more about them. What do you love about the job? What do you love about the company? What is the coolest and most fun thing that you're working on now? How do you love to engage with the members on your team, your direct reports, everything, just like super, super positive. If they like you and you still have doubts, come back and have a follow-up conversation later where you ask the really probing and challenging questions. Not everybody agrees with this approach, but we want people to be talking about themselves. People will like you better if they're talking about themselves. Okay. And then, sorry, Summer, now we'll go to your second comment. You've heard on the levels for L5, L6, and L7, but there are sub-bands between levels. No, that's actually not a true statement. I don't know where you read that, but there are no sub-bands within levels. That doesn't exist. There used to be like a product manager 7.5. That was the only sub-level I've ever seen, and they got rid of that. So there are no sub-levels. I don't know. That's just a bad data point. And remember, everything we hear online isn't true, so it's just always something to remember. Hi, Jeff. If I applied to G with a referral link but not selected for an interview, do I remain a candidate for other positions? Yeah, you're going to have to apply or use your referrer, which is my stronger recommendation to get in front of those. Okay, use your referrer again, but don't wait for them to reach out to you. Does it look bad or weak if you don't negotiate your offer, especially if you're interviewing for a pre-sales role? I mean, I just don't know why you wouldn't negotiate. If you don't negotiate for a CE role, you're likely leaving somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $100,000 a year on the table. So why wouldn't you negotiate is the better question. I know that negotiation sometimes brings about some fear and some anxiety. You want to uncover that. Again, I'm not here to pitch my services. Well, maybe a little bit, but hire me, right? Like, because I can, the CE roles, like that low band. Remember, when we come into these big tech companies, their baseline bottom line offer, it's low. We can definitely increase those offers. So just make sure that you're keeping a really, really strong pulse on the fact that, like, negotiation, if you do a few simple tips and tricks, you'll have tremendous success getting way more money. So no, it doesn't look weak or bad, but you'd just be leaving so much money on the table. Do you know if PTO or vacation days are negotiable? And PTO at the big tech companies is 100% non-negotiable. They're a huge company. They're not going to negotiate on that. Startups, maybe. Yeah, and of course they have strong 401k matching and contributions. All that stuff is going to be really, really strong. 2 points based on a call with recruiter told me that roles being taken off career site doesn't fully reflect Free's impact. Thank you for that. That's 100% true. So don't read too much into it. And not all APAC L5 on chopping board. Okay, great. Yeah, and I saw that comment and I saw 3 through 5 and I thought 5, that was surprising. So, okay. So thank you for that data point. We're going to take all of it. I appreciate it. I'm not sure what's going on with that comment. If you want to come back and provide a little more clarity, that would be helpful. Hi, Jeff. I passed the RRK in Googling this interview, December 2021, reached out to recruiter, no longer there, and hiring manager, no answer. Should I still apply to positions in GCP in spite of the hiring freeze? Yeah, I would. I mean, Victor, I would maybe reach out to the hiring manager one more time and say, you know, I never really got a survey. I never had the opportunity to know if my profile was closed out. Can you put me in touch with another recruiter? Something. I mean, that would be an act of kindness that they really need to show to you if they never really told you if it was closed out or not. But I would say absolutely get after it. I don't think that GCP will be deprioritized like other roles. Jeff, you missed the second part of my earlier question. Oh, sorry about that. You're right. I did miss that. Candidature is usually valid for 1 year. So if you finished everything today and like it froze up until August 9th of next year, it will be available. Thanks for that. Yeah, if I miss anything, if I miss the second part, if I skip over somebody's question, just please let me know. FAANG or build a tech startup? Is it worth it to join FAANG before building a tech startup? Well, I think the pure benefit, and right, like, I think I learned a lot of lessons by working in a big tech company, and some of those lessons were tough lessons, some were good lessons, right? And, for me, the biggest lesson that I typically communicate to people, and I learned a lot by working at Google, but the one lesson that I've really applied more than anything else is execution. Just execute. And I didn't really know how to do that before I was there. I spent X number of years in my career really not understanding that, like, executing and shipping without perfection, right? And so that's a huge, huge data point. And obviously, you come into these lives and they're not perfect, right? But I just show up every week and I ship. And so, that's one of the biggest takeaways I had. And I think everybody will have good learning lessons if they go and work at a big tech company. And it's not for everybody. And I can tell you, based on everything I've experienced as an entrepreneur, I won't go back. But I had to get those lessons first to get where I am today. I hope that helps. Do you think the hiring freezes will affect programs like APM and RPM that typically open up? Yeah, I think there probably will be some impact there. Yeah, I just think at the like associate level, you're going to see a little bit more impact, would be my guess, and just kind of some of the messaging that we've seen overall. Sorry, guys. Hydrating and caffeinating. 2 weeks ago, G-Recruiter said positive feedback, TPM L5 Waterloo on-site interviews, but couldn't move forward due to restructuring. You should be pretty positive. Again, this good feedback will hold with us and carry with us. So again, just figure out the cadence with the recruiter. How often can I reach out? Can I reach out to you once a month? Is that cool? Like, if you get their permission, then they're not going to be annoyed every time you reach out. But usually, like, when things get deprioritized or the position goes away, think like once a month. You want to be basically touching base with them about once a month. Oh, thank you so much for that. I have an outstanding offer. Should I accept it? Start the job while waiting to hear from Google. So my guidance has been yes. Just understand that if you do that, you are going to burn a bridge. You'll probably never be able to go back to that company. Now, maybe occasionally they'll forgive, but for the most part, you'll never be able to go back. So it's just something that if you like the company, it's just something to keep in mind, okay? But that has been my guidance for everybody. We don't know when it's going to happen. And even let's say you're unfrozen, like getting through HC, getting through comp, it's going to be a little bit of a beast. And I think that's why they're giving the October timeline, because they know they're going to be super, super backed up when everything ultimately does get approval and go through. Do you have any data points for Google Munich with teams impacted or levels impacted? No, nothing specifically that I've seen coming out of Munich. Google, what's the probability of not matching a team and getting rejected? Well, 2 team matches isn't a ton, right? But when we get into the team match stage and we're not getting picked, we want to ask ourselves, well, why? Did we go in with enough excitement and enthusiasm and engagement and ask great questions and really prepare as much as we can for those team match calls, or just reflect back? But 2 teams not matching, that's not a big deal in my mind, or in my opinion. With G, I had the recruiter and one more interview on 8-2. Interview said I should hear back in 48 hours from recruiter, but no luck. I pinged the recruiter yesterday with no luck. Yeah, you're just going to have to just keep following up, okay? That's all you can do. Just stay on top of it, okay? But you should have heard back from now. Just be gracious and kind in those messages and check in once a week. I'm not interviewed for the past 2 years. Should I try changing my accounts, both AWS and Google? Should I try changing my accounts? Changing your accounts, do you mean? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the question is. If you want to come back and ask it again. Okay. Minneapolis. Okay, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Okay, cool. And I think one person was in one location and was asking you, Brady, where you were located. FYI, I just heard from an internal source at Google that due to the slowdown, a lot of contract positions will open up, as that's the only way for some teams to fill positions. Contractors are in high demand. Okay, amazing, Max. Thank you so much for sharing. This is why we show up. This is why we're here in this community, to get really good data points like this. Now, the contractor thing is super tricky because those positions are not typically posted. So we need to be proactive and get our LinkedIn profiles super up to date so that we can be contacted for these contractor roles. If you have not updated your LinkedIn profile and put all those keywords under each position, you are missing opportunities. If you could see what it looks like from a recruiter standpoint, they do keyword and Boolean searches in LinkedIn Recruiter, which is an advanced tool. It gives them much, much more data to work with. So if our LinkedIn profiles aren't up to date, we can't get reached out to about these contractor roles. Max, thanks so much for that. Really, really critical data point. People just shut down. Like, I can see the amount of people on this live at any one point. It's like you talk about LinkedIn and people just go running for the hills. They dive off. But look, and LinkedIn is what it is. Like, it's not the greatest tool in the world, but it is the tool. So just make sure your profiles are up to date, and smiling picture, shoulders and above. Like, you will engage and bring people in to your world if you have a smiling picture. All the data supports that. Okay, so I've done a bunch of videos on LinkedIn. Nobody watches them. I get it. It's a dry topic, but little tangent there. But get that LinkedIn profile up to date. It will open up contractor opportunities for you. Thanks, Max. Thank you for all your content. Current situation: interviewed with Google a few months ago. During the interview, you were laid off by your company. Okay, not performance related, just a reduction. Okay. And then per your recommendation, didn't actively bring it up, made it past the on-site team, but went with another candidate. Recruiter said feedback was strong, but would put me forward for another role. Had another offer, so took it. Did not let the recruiter know. Recruiter recently reached out for a role. They pushed pre-freeze. The team lost headcount, but hiring manager would like to proceed with team fit calls in case opportunity opens up in the future. Okay, so when exactly should I bring up that you were laid off a few weeks ago and start a new role? Since these would come up in the background check, neither the recruiter or hiring manager is aware of each. Okay, so don't bring it up. It's not important yet. You're not at the background check phase, so you don't have to bring it up. And then if you shouldn't bring it up during the interview, should I maintain the status of being laid off when talking about my background? No, if those questions come up, we just want to be very straightforward and answer and say, look, I did end up taking another opportunity. I'm still interested in exploring Google. I know I would be burning a bridge. I know it's not ideal, but I'm really excited about this opportunity, and I would only do it for Google, and something like that. And then they'll understand, but we don't want to be dishonest. We don't want to hide anything, right? We're just maybe not providing full clarity to them all the time, but if it comes up directly, you do want to answer that question. At least that's what I would do, okay? What plans does Google have with Microsoft to ensure ethical binary program to combat malicious AI such as fail-safe human control? Absolutely no clue. I could not say the answer to that question because I don't work there and I don't know, but I know that they are working on the challenges with AI and all that malicious stuff. It's constantly being worked at, but the depth of that, I obviously can't answer that question. What is the multiplier for developer advocate, technical trainer in ML AI to SWE? Well, dev advocate, technical trainer, I'm a little confused by the question. If you're a developer advocate or technical trainer, it's probably going to be like a 0.75 to what a SWE would make. I think that's the question. And that's pretty consistent in most markets. If that didn't answer your question, come back and ask again. I know I'm a little bit behind. Made it past HC through team match for product manager L6. Matched to 3 teams, really liked one. And with the HM and his director, they just wanted me to meet with the Eng director, then the hiring freeze hit. Assuming it will still go forward post-freeze, what's the multiplier for product management in Portland, Oregon. So 100%. Product managers are making what Swedes are making. So look at what Swedes are making in Portland, and it's pretty much apples for apples. That's what I would be really targeting. So whatever that number is, 30% higher on the anchor. Product managers are the hottest role in the world, along with like anything AI, ML, obviously. And again, we've talked a lot about like UX, UI design. That's pretty hot too. The product's super hot. You should really, really be able to maximize that call. Thanks for your continued work. Yeah, thank you for showing up. I mean, obviously, the thing I love about the lives, right, is that we all do this together, right? So we look at this as a community-based platform. Everybody comes up and they show up, and yeah, of course, it's mostly questions, but it's also lots of data points. So it's awesome to see everybody contributing. It's really, really cool. Replying to somebody in the chat, I'm in the USA. Oh, okay. Role was for Boulder. Okay, cool. Yeah, Minneapolis. I don't think there's a Minneapolis office. Pretty sure there's not one. But I have worked with some people who have been working remote from there. Yeah. Question: any insights specific to the interview process requirements, specifically to Google Cloud roles for U.S. public sector team, strategy and ops role, center of excellence? Yeah, for strategy and ops, it really doesn't matter that it's public sector, other than the fact that you're going to bring in public sector and focus in on that and your open-ended solutions. You'll say, let's assume we're working with a large public sector customer, client, et cetera, et cetera. But strategy and ops is straight up what it is. You got to be really strategic. You got to be really operational. Finding the balance of the two is really, really tough. And then heavy collaboration. That's what's going to yield success in those roles. Hi, Jeff. I'm sure there's some bias on my part, but I feel like I keep hearing you say that role XYZ is unlikely to be deprioritized by Google. What are the roles or orgs that are likely to be? Well, anything that does not drive revenue, right? So what doesn't drive revenue? And I know this, like, I would think something like a role in finance, for example. Yeah, they got to run the numbers and have all that clear, but could they back off of maybe finance positions, for example? Sure. Could they back off of hiring lower level software engineers because they hire so many engineers in general? Absolutely. Can they back off of some of just the lower level positions across the board? Yeah, because they're less strategic. But just calling out the different areas, I'm not really sure because there's so many different areas. So that's why I've been more focused in on what they will hire for, as opposed to just yelling out like what they won't, because I don't really know. I think it also could be based on other factors that we're really not talking about. Like, well, what's been the attrition in that department? Like, if a department's had a lot of attrition, they're going to just need to backfill, right? We rarely talk about attrition, but that's a big one to consider. How long has the position been open? That could be another piece. So there's just so many factors, but it's a great question, Will. I appreciate it. Wednesdays at 1 o'clock is now blocked off on my calendar. Great content and insight question. What's the anchor L6 TPM NYC? I would be anchoring. I'd be anchoring in the mid fours, probably. That role L6 TPM should definitely get up high threes, up around 4. So 444, 446, something like that. But TPMs are getting paid really well, especially in New York and the Bay. So how does university hiring look like? Okay. It's not going to be good. I just don't think that university hiring, it's going to be totally deprioritized, I would guess, but I'm just guessing. Hi, Jeff. Wanted to seek your advice on a role I should target at Google. Having 15 years of experience in IT and worked on many software development, maintenance, support, migration, okay, mainly banking and finance, tech stack. Okay. What role you target is ultimately really up to you. I actually can't make that decision for you. What are the roles that intrigue us and stretch our backgrounds a little bit, but do we have the core requirements to do the role? You don't need to be able to do everything. And remember, years of experience is always just a suggestion, right? So those are the two major things to keep in mind. You have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, so it's really going to be up to you. I wish I had a better answer, but I really want people to make decisions based on interest, passion, and stretching themselves a little bit. Hey, Jeff, any tips for negotiating remote work with Google, interviews and recruiter pushing for co-location? Yeah, so when they absolutely love you and want to hire you and you get into that negotiation phase, you'll reintroduce it. That's the biggest data point. Does it work? Well, it usually works better when they've identified us as the candidate, and that's the best piece of advice I can give. Okay, we're hitting the hour mark. I'm about a half an hour behind. So usually at the hour mark, I'm going to start to pick up the pace just a little bit. Everybody knows I'm low and slow. If you do want to go back and watch this live, you can always watch me on 2X. I'm a 2Xer. I listen to basically any learning and education. Everything's 2X. You want to get more out of my content? Speed me up. I'm pretty slow. Okay. So ACE, ACE, limited time offer just today. If you type in ACE as the coupon code for our interview mastery course, you'll get $100 off just until 11:59 Pacific time PM today. I do interview coaching. I do negotiation coaching. Candidly, I have more availability than I would typically have. If this was April, you'd be waiting 10 days. There'd be a wait list. It's not the case right now, right? Things have slowed down for me too, so I feel the pain as well. If you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live every single Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, and new content videos every other Tuesday. And I think I might drive and push some shorts next week. Might do a bunch of shorts, but I'm still thinking about it. And let me know what you guys think about YouTube shorts and if you like them or not. Hey, Jeff, watching you from a train in France. Amazing. About to receive an offer from Microsoft as a SWE L4. Have no idea what compensation I can get. Any insight? Levels.fyi. You're going to have some data in your market on levels for other software engineers. And we use that. Take the last like 5 people who were hired at a same level, take the average, and then that's your number that you should be targeting. And then you're anchoring, 20 to 30% above that. Good luck. Yeah, I love France. Hoping to get back there maybe later this year. Hello, Jeff. Love your live sessions. It's become customary to join in every Wednesday. My recruiter informed me today to wait until the mid next week, which matches your data position about the 16th. Okay, cool. Good. Love getting validation. Yeah, that's what I heard from a couple of clients. Hi, Jeff. Had G India L4 SWE rounds last week. I know 2 of my coding rounds didn't go well, but G and L and last coding round went really well. Should I keep up my hopes? Haven't heard from the recruiter yet. Yeah, I would just definitely, and then the last part, I get rejected. How long should I wait to reapply? So reach out to your recruiter. If it was last week, I think it's okay to reach out to your recruiter now. Just check in and touch base. We don't always know. Sometimes we're really hard on ourselves and the interviews went better than we think. So just stay positive. Usually it's a year to reapply for the same role, but we're just going to have to wait and see, okay? L3, L4 SWE, how likely is it to Google to sponsor H1B and hire Sri Lankan, assuming I pass the interviews? Yeah, so I don't think that there'll be a difference if you need sponsorship. I think that the bigger challenge is just the sheer amount of L3 and L4 SWEs that they'll hire this year. So we're just going to have to keep a pulse on that. But if you're a good fit, they will provide sponsorship, okay? Hey, Jeff, is it easy for an engineer at Intel or AMD to relocate from country A to country B? Depends on what country A and country B is, right? Some countries it's easier to move around. If you're trying to move from Canada to the US, that's going to be easier than moving from A to B, for example, right? Obviously within the European Union, pretty easy to move around. But the roles that do require sponsorship in the US, one of the trickiest things if you're trying to go from country A, which could be to country B in the US, is that just getting into the interviews. Once you're in the interviews, it's easier for them to provide sponsorship if you crush it, but it's just kind of getting in the door sometimes that can be the most challenging. It's been a month since my last interview, and the recruiter is very vague with updates. Is it bad to look to go around them and reach out to the coordinator to ask for more details? I wouldn't go around. If they're responding to you, I wouldn't go around them. Okay. If they're not providing you with a ton of data, just stick with it for now. I know it can be really, really frustrating, but stick with it for now. Now, if you get into this type of scenario where it's been a month since recruiter replied back, if it's been a month, we go around them. Okay. But if they're responding, even if it's vague, we just kind of got to stick with it. But if it's been this long, you got to go around them because it's just we just can't wait. Right? Like that's just totally unacceptable to not hear back for a month. Like the level of disorganization when a recruiter doesn't reach out to you for a month when you're in the interview process, like that is so overwhelming to my mind and my brain. Like I can't attach to that. Like what's going on with how they set up their email and their applicant tracking system and all these things, their calendar, it's so poor that somebody wouldn't hear back for a month. Like it's just, the job's not that hard. Now, people would get really upset, recruiters would get upset with me, but the reality is that the biggest challenging missing skill is organization. Get organized and that job gets significantly easier. And it took me a long time to learn that, by the way. My recruiter is very vague. I depress her to know about rejection and that I'm back to team. If I tell her about my meta interviews, I love giving clarity to recruiters. They can only help you if they have that data. They don't have that data, they can't help. So they might say, okay, meta, let me speak with the hiring manager, let me push. So just always keep your recruiters in the know. Typically it helps us, okay? Do I contact the hiring coordinator that I contacted? Does it leave a negative? Yeah, like I just don't want, oh, for you, yes. I would want you going to the coordinator because you haven't heard back from your recruiter. Yeah, if it's been a month, we're going to go around them as much as we can. Hey, Jeff, I finished my interviews for a TPM role. The original position is closed. Is it possible to be considered for another PGM, other TPM role? Absolutely. Just stay in touch with your recruiter, see what roles are going to open up, and we'll know a little bit more next week, hopefully. Also went till on-site interviews and the recruiter said she'd pass my application to HC. In case I got rejected, will I have a chance to interview 6 months to a year later? I mean, you shouldn't have gotten rejected. Like, okay, so an interesting thing came up in the Slack group. If you've never joined our Slack group, like it's free. People are sharing really valuable insights. You can just go to practiceinterviews.com. It's one of the top, it's on the top bar, sign up, super, super easy. We had 3 people in the Slack group saying they got their candidate survey feedback, their candidate surveys sent to them. And these are people at the offer stage. That's a bad sign. Like typically what that means is we get the candidate surveys because our application has been closed. If you get a candidate survey, there's a high likelihood that your application was closed, which means you're not moving forward. You can ruin your recruiter if that's how you figure out that you're not moving forward in the process. I can't say for sure because of the hiring freeze. There could be some funky things happening, but I just wanted to highlight that item. Any advice for government employee candidate applying to a non-tech position? Nope, just make sure you have a good resume, and obviously networking and referrals are the recommended path to getting in the door. Accept your offer at G a few weeks back and joining on September 26th. Should I get in touch with my recruiter? Just maintaining cadence. I'm working with relocation and onboarding team. Nope. I think everything sounds good. Awesome that you're starting in September. That was probably pre some of the free stuff. So no, good news. If you want to touch base with them, you can, but it sounds like everything's progressing nicely. Hi, Jeff. Wanted to share some good news that after interviewing with the social labs team for 3 months, was offered the role and he began on Monday. Thank you so much. Amazing. Spent many weekends and nights prepping, and your content was super instrumental to my success. Thanks so much for Sam for coming back and letting us know. I know we're not getting as many of these as we typically get in the live. So absolutely. I know that once people have heard me and seen my face for a long period of time, they're like, okay, I'm happy to move on and not deal with Jeff anymore. So I really, really appreciate it when people do come in and say thank you. That gratitude really keeps me going. So thank you for that. Okay, you interviewed for TS, Policy, Privacy, Legal, PGM position, YouTube. What are the chances of those positions being deprioritized? I really think that they won't be, but because I'm like the user focus for Google is like so important, and trust and safety is at the very top of that list. So I don't think they'll be. Obviously, I'm just guessing, but I would put that in the less likelihood category. But it's just a guess. Already completed team match, and recruiter said hiring manager remains very interested. Okay, that's good news. Let's see what else you got. I've already completed team match. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. And you're at the offer review stage. Okay, we'll see if anything else comes through. I'm in a weird spot. Previously executive product and marketing, successful exit, spent past 4 months at an agency, senior manager role to learn, potentially open my own later. Now I'm trying to re-enter the job market. Recommended approach. Well, the only way to get back into the job market is to interview, right? And obviously you want to make sure you're creating that really good resume, your LinkedIn is really up to date, and that you're starting to get those foundational practice and prep down. Prep first, then start practicing with friends, former colleagues, significant other, and obviously you can always hire me as a coach, but get organized a little bit first and then dive right in. Thank you, Tina. Congrats to the new Googlers who are showing up here. Tina has an amazing journey, an amazing story, and Tina shows up a lot in the Slack group to help people out. So again, if you've never joined the Slack group, I'm pushing it because it's absolutely free. So if you want to get questions answered and just like work and have that camaraderie, have that community feel, join our Slack group. It's not a huge group. It's about 3,200 people who show up in like that big bucket of Ask Me Anything, because we have that kind of bucket. So yeah, if you want to join, absolutely do that. Okay, answered that one. Suppose I get interviewed for Google and able to answer everything, but unable to answer anything related to Python. Is it possible for them to hire me if you promise to learn it in the next 1 to 2 months? I would say no. I mean, if the role requires coding in Python, just telling them you're going to learn it in the next 1 to 2 months, I don't believe that would be enough if that's going to be a part of the interviews. Okay, I would recommend learning Python or getting on some of those good platforms like LeetCode to practice Python skills pre-interview. Should I change accounts, okay, so, okay. I think what you're asking is, should you apply with maybe like a different email address? I wouldn't. I would try and keep the consistency with your applications going, but that's really up to you. But I believe that's what you're asking. If it's not, I know there's a long delay between my answers. Come back and let me know. I'm currently in one associate rotational programs, actually just going through the onboarding this week. Are these considered high priority enough roles, possibly to lay off? I wouldn't expect, if you're already in it, I wouldn't expect it. Again, you just want to be checking and getting the pulse from other people in the group, but if you're already in it, I wouldn't expect it. I love these rotational programs, by the way. Super, super cool. Learn as much as you can. Ask tons of great questions throughout the rotations. Hi, Jeff. What would be a good high anchor for Amazon SDE3 in Seattle? So, Tom, this is one where like I can provide data, but the data's already there. Levels.fyi. I mean, for software engineers or software developers, like we just have so much data. Use that data, because what's happened in the last 2 or 3 months, I don't have as much of a pulse. Yeah, of course, I help negotiate Amazon offers. I have clients like that all the time, but Levels is going to be your best friend. Look at the last 10 people that got hired in the bucket, the most recent bucket, and then anchor at about 30% above that average is my recommendation. How do I stay fit? I am very, very fortunate to live in San Diego. And so I'm a big body surfer. I know how much people know about body surfing, but you just catch the waves with your body. So I do that in the summertime. I'll go out and basically do that every day. I am a big fan of yoga too. And most of my workouts are yoga. SWE L4 in greater DC area, had on-sites with G August 2nd, finally getting feedback from the recruiter in an hour. Hope this is a data point. Okay, let us know, come back, come into the Slack community. Let us know what's going on. That would be really helpful. Thank you so much, and good luck. What is the multiplier for PGM L5 and the SFB compared to a SWE at G? Program manager is probably going to be about a 0.7, 0.75. Okay. Whereas TPMs would be 0.85, 0.9. So there's about a 10 to 12% differential in what TPMs pay to program managers. But yeah, like really 0.7, 0.75 is what you should be using. Good question. I found out I'm interviewing at G for a level 5 CE. I looked at the comps for New York and I'm already making about what a L6 CE makes. How much wiggle room do I have? I want to take a pay cut. Well, so, I mean, an L5 CE, I could look at my data, but an L5 CE in New York, we should be making up to like 400K-ish. I've done a lot of CEs. I'm just having like a brain fog today. And so, yeah, like 400. So if you're making, I mean, you must be making about 500 or more. Remember, like the CE, the good thing is on the bonus target, 42.86%. Like you can get like 3x on that if you're in a really good market. So just something to consider. But Jake, if you want to let us know more, and obviously I'm here to help with negotiation stuff if you need it. Thank you. LAS, lead account strategist, adds levels, doesn't list this position or you can't find it. How reliable is Glassdoor? Okay, so no Glassdoor, ever. Glassdoor is one of the worst places to go for salary for big tech. Like, for big tech, we don't do it. So again, we got to use that multiplier. 0.7 of what a SWE is making is going to be a really good indicator. You know, if I'm anchoring L4, L5, Bay Area, you know, for an L4, I'm anchoring probably in the 220, 230, 240 range. And then for an L5, I'm probably going to go into the threes as an anchor, even though it will probably pay in the like 260 range for a 5, year 1. Had a final interview last week. Company just had mass layoffs this week, including HR connection. She said a new person will be in touch with feedback and next steps, wondering what I should do. Had a final interview last week. Company just had massive layoffs. Yeah, this is going to be tricky. Ty, like, new person would be in touch. Just continue to drive it. Take ownership of it as much as you can, because we don't know anybody who you have contact information for, because like we don't want to sit back. So just make sure you're creating a cadence with anybody who you can contact. I hope that helps. What type of roles, teams should law enforcement officers look at that could be looking for career changes but stay in security? Okay, this is interesting. We had this question either last week or the previous week come up a couple times. So again, you have to look at the transferable skills. If there is some security, if there are some security items that you have a strength in, obviously that's going to be really powerful. I don't know the technical component that goes into law enforcement. I'm sure there's some people in law enforcement who are more technical, but anything in the security space is going to be pretty technical, just something to keep in mind. But obviously making career changes is always something that I recommend. I don't know if that answer was super helpful, but I hope it helped. Currently interviewing for a PM role. I live in the Bay Area, 12 years of experience. I have the flexibility to push the interview up to 6 months. Should I take it now or delay? I mean, I would take it now. I would just say for PM interviews, it depends on where you're interviewing. Like Google, that's the hardest interview at Google, in my opinion. Now, I know SWE interviews are tough, but you can either code or you can't code. The product interviews are really, really tough. If you want to check out some practice questions for good PM big tech companies, tryexponent.com has some really, really great sourced questions. Any idea about coffee chat sessions with Google leaders and what the next steps? Yeah, coffee chats, great energy, excitement, enthusiasm, stand. Great answer to tell me about yourself. Stay engaged throughout. Really just prep and practice on any great examples that you can bring to the table, and then ask fantastic questions that are all very positive and really focus in on them to start. Thanks, Jeff. Do you know if recruiter includes what they think about the candidate communication with your package to HC? They do not. Recruiters don't. Now, recruiters can influence hiring managers to say, like, look, here's what I really liked about this person, or here's what I didn't like, but it doesn't go in the packet. They can and will, they will go into those HCs and answer any direct questions that HC has, but they're not supposed to provide an opinion. Great session as always. Awesome. How do you plan your schedule once floodgates open up? It will be sudden, and many candidates get Google offer indicators. So I'm going to try to be really, really flexible. They will reach out to schedule your negotiation service. Should they buy it now? If it doesn't happen, to reimburse. Yeah, so here's where I'm at with all my negotiation clients. If their role gets deprioritized, they're going to get 100% refund from me. That's just the right thing to do from my business standpoint and perspective. I mean, I'm very upfront with this. Nothing's more important than my brand. And I learned that from working at Google. So I'm always going to default to losing money and keeping my brand really high. I don't recommend booking it right now. I recommend that when these offers move forward, if people want to book, I'm here to help with the process, okay? And if anything happens, again, it does get deprioritized, I'll refund. I can be very, very flexible with the negotiation stuff. And so if you ever don't see time on my calendar, just hop on the chat. I'm running the chat right now. I'm trying to hire somebody to take over. We had somebody before. So if you ever don't see availability, just come hit us up on the chat, and we'll be more than happy to squeeze you in, okay? I completed my on-site in late June. Will that expire? Mentally preparing myself for L4 suite hiring to resume. Okay. No, I mean, that should be valid for 1 year. So obviously you just want to keep a pulse and see where things are at, and keep us posted, Bradley, if we can help with anything. Principal architect, lead principal architect. So principal architect lead in GCP, architects actually will have a sales incentive. So this gets closer to 0.9 or a little bit higher. Hi, Jeff. I had an interview last week with Google and got rejected, but the recruiter informed me that there was positive feedback. If he comes across similar positions, he'll reach out to me. What is your thought? Is this because of the hiring freeze? Nope. You probably got rejected. The feedback can be positive and we still get rejected. I think that's kind of like a misnomer, right? Like, it's like, okay, like the feedback was positive, they should move forward, but obviously the bar is really high. So it's probably likely just that the feedback was good, but maybe not strong enough. I wish they were a little bit more clear about that. But just stay in touch. If you had positive feedback, you want to try and stay in touch and see if opportunities open up in the future. I missed what you were talking about, the candidate survey. Can you explain a little bit? Does it mean the recruiter has closed out your application? Yes. I mean, that's what it always meant in the past. So that's why I'm really confused. If you get the survey, usually that means your application is closed and then that survey goes out in a week or two. That's what it meant in the past. So I don't know if they're sending these surveys during the freeze. It just wouldn't make a lot of sense. So again, in the notes, if you never receive feedback about any sort of finalizing, in the notes, you're going to say, I'm not sure why I'm receiving this. I never heard back after my interviews. If the process has ended and my application has been closed, I would be very upset with my recruiter for not letting me know that that's what happened. These recruiters need to feel the pain if they're just closing out applications and you're getting sent a survey. That is a huge and terrible candidate experience. And so we're just going to have to see what's going on. I'm not really sure what's happening there, but we're seeing a little bit of this, obviously. I got for the first round of interviews for a web associate strategic partner manager. Whoa. I got informed that the hiring process will be paused and the next interview is canceled. What should you do? Create a cadence with your recruiter. Just say, hey, can I touch base with you once a month, once a quarter? That's all you can do. But I could see why maybe those roles would be deprioritized. Just curious around how many roles and how many candidates does a single Google recruiter juggle at any given time? Well, it depends. It really does depend on the roles. The more nichey the roles, less. Like when I hired software engineers, I just had a much bigger pipeline, right? But when it was program managers, it was a little smaller. When it was customer focused engineering, I hired a lot of like technical solutions engineers, technical solutions consultants. You know, that the more niche down, maybe 30 or 40 or 50 active candidates at somewhere in the interview process, or I'm reaching out to them. For, again, software engineers, that might go up to 100. But, you know, obviously, if they have a good system in place, to get back to you should be pretty easy. Is it even worth reaching out to my Google Recruiter? It's been 2 weeks since our last conversation, and I know if I ask for an update, it's going to be a no update. Get that no update. It's better than nothing, because it's at least showing engagement and they're remembering you and thinking about you. Be proactive. It's helpful. Finally caught alive. Okay, awesome. I'm just starting a career, but I got a great job at one of the best digital agencies in Croatia. Okay. It's only an intern role, but I got to start somehow. Just want to say thanks for the videos. Thanks, Bruno. Amazing. Thanks for showing up from Croatia. I was just trying to get over to Europe in Christmas, and I was just looking at this really cool city in Croatia that has a really cool like Christmas nights. I can't remember the name of the city, but thank you so much for the positive feedback. We all have to start somewhere, and I'll tell you, you know, like one of the things we don't talk about here, and we're talking about is a good time to change careers. You know, from my executive recruiter role to the next recruiter role I took like half the money to take that job, because I saw the opportunity, I like the organization, etc. So sometimes we're always like, we're taking steps forward and steps back to ultimately go forward. Just my 2 cents. Again, same thing when I went to Google, I took a contract role from a full-time role, but sometimes these are just the moves we have to make. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us every Wednesday. It's been therapeutic when so many of us are just waiting in this limbo stage, right from helping us prep to doing this. You're the man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. This community is super great, right? Like everybody's really positive. I love showing up for this great community. It's amazing. Having trouble joining the Slack group. Unable to see anyone's Slack, though I was following all the steps. Okay, please throw that to me in the chat on practice interviews, and I will see if I can get that fixed for you, okay? I finished my TPM on-site interviews. How long should I wait to follow up with my recruiter? And any advice for those who have been in the process, then hit with the freeze? I love the little cold emoji, amazing. You finished your TPM on-site interview. So if it's been 5 business days or longer, follow up, okay. Team Fit RRK interview as a digital marketing strategist upcoming. Any last minute tips? No, digital marketing. So RRK is going to, again, always be very role focused. So think about your digital marketing skills, how you've strategized, and how you've collaborated with both internal and external parties to have success in the area. Also, if we're really talking last minute, like it's today, remember, really Zen state and shut down for at least a half an hour before the interviewer interviews. And good luck. Compared to the recent aggressive removal of jobs from G careers, the last couple of days and today have been fairly low. Looks like the whole shebang of a reprior is on the way to being settling down. Yep, I agree. You know, and again, like this removal of like, there's still over 4,000 active positions on there. So like, yeah, they cut some, but it was maybe 20% or less. So still lots of opportunities. I found your video after my initial recruiting call. I gave a very low number. Am I stuck now? The recruiter said we'll revisit this later. Yeah, you can always re-anchor. It's harder. You definitely put yourself in a tiny bit of a hole, but we can always re-anchor. And it's just like, look, you know, we do need to talk about comp because I had an opportunity to do my research and my numbers are really low for the market and cost of labor in this market for like roles. So therefore, I really am going to require X. X is my expectation. Please take that back to the decision makers, the comp team, etc. So we'll just have to wait and see. Come back as it gets closer. Have an offer from Amazon that expires today. Also matched with a team from Google. Okay. Should I ask for an extension on the deadline from Amazon to say Google yes, but you didn't pass HC? I mean, I recommend taking the Amazon offer. if you don't mind burning the bridge. Usually when offers expire, that means maybe you haven't negotiated, because the offer, if you're in the negotiation phase, that offer expiration date doesn't really mean anything. So just make sure that you are negotiating that offer, okay? But it is my default recommendation to take these offers and then burn a bridge if you need to. I know it's not great advice and not everybody's going to agree with it, but it's just my 2 cents for right now. I had a meeting with the hiring manager 3 days before the freeze and had a verbal offer for a SWE L3 right before the freeze. What are the chances that they'll still have headcount after? Yeah, and this is going to be tricky because it's an L3 SWE. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I don't really know what's going to happen with those roles and whether they'll be deprioritized or not. I think that SWEs that were in your stage have a higher likelihood of success. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, we're at the 30s. I'm going to roll through. It looks like there's not a ton of questions left. So I'm going to actually go ahead and sum up, and then I'll get to all the rest of the questions. If we end up going another half an hour, I'll probably do another sum up. But Jeff H. Sipe is my name. Practiceinterviews.com is the business. We do interview coaching, negotiation coaching. And if you use the coupon code ACE, ACE, special offer today, $100 off till 11:59 a.m. or p.m. Pacific time. If you like what we did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, and new content videos every other Tuesday. If I'm ever not going to go live, I will put that in the community tab. I know in September, for example, I know I'm going to be taking 1 week off of doing the live. Hi, Jeff. Did my last round of G at the end of July. I just get the experiencing delays message today as an update. The job posting was removed. Yeah, don't worry too much about the job posting. The fact that you just heard back now is like for you to hear back sooner, but don't worry about the job post being removed. Don't take that as an indicator of anything right now. Hey, Jeff, can you make more videos on sales presentation closing? Well, I have a presentation interview video, like actually closing a sales presentation. It's pretty niche-y, so it's something I'll consider. I always want the community to provide video ideas because I need them, candidly, but I also do like to do videos that cast a relatively wide net, so that may be a little bit too niche down for me, but it's definitely something I'll add to my list and consider. Thanks for your videos. I just got a new job. Your advice helped me immensely. You start on Monday. Amazing, Danny. Thank you so much for letting us know. I really appreciate it and wish you the best of luck. Thanks for answering my questions today. Absolutely, some are some really good questions. Thanks for. Jeff, if you have a bad recruiter, how can we leave feedback about the bad recruiter? That's in the survey, right? So hopefully you're interviewing at a company that provides surveys. For Google, I always tell people check your junk mail. It's like a really funky survey, and sometimes people don't see it. So just definitely be checking your junk mail, but make them feel the pain. Say they were bad and they were bad for the following reasons. Don't just say they were bad. State the reasons why they were bad. They wouldn't follow up with me. They wouldn't give me information. They wouldn't tell me X, Y, or Z. So make sure that you're giving very specific feedback, because again, we need them to feel that pain so that they will get better, so that other people won't experience it. So it's cyclical. So it's paying it forward for somebody else. We had the bad experience, but hopefully nobody else will if you provide that very specific feedback in the survey. Okay, thanks, Jeff. Since I shouldn't bring up being laid off or starting a new role unless they directly mention it, when should I bring up? Following a successful onsite or before the verbal offer? No, you don't even need to bring it up. It's just as you're rounding out the offer, you've gone through multiple rounds of negotiation. They're saying, hey, we're going to do the background check. You're going to say, look, I have some updates. I left that other company and I've actually joined a new company, so I'd like to add those items. But you don't need to do it till the very end, okay? Just make sure it happens before the background check. They're not going to feel like you lied to them. This stuff happens all the time, so don't worry about it. Can I take your previously asked questions, please? I don't remember your previously asked questions, so if I didn't answer them, just throw it back in there. That would be helpful. Especially we're going to come to the end here really soon, so if you want to throw in those questions again. I thought I did answer your question, but please let me know. Sometimes people pop off and pop on, so I don't really know. SWE L3, L4, division is GCP and Surge, fixed when I apply. I don't really care what division. Can I continue with interviews and ask them to give me whatever they have based on availability? Well, maybe. Yeah, we'll just have to see how that plays out. But if you're open-minded to multiple product areas, typically, you get more team match calls, and usually it will work in your favor, typically. Is there a general SWE cache, SWE, to apply to, so I later choose? I'm not sure about that. Is there a general SWE L4 position to apply to? Yeah. You should see many of them. A lot of them will be default to just more generic, so that's very common. What is the approximate salary for a research scientist at Google in London? Only found 5 reported on Glassdoor. Don't look at Glassdoor, because so research scientists, go on levels.fyi, look at what the last X number of people hired as software engineers at the level you're targeting, and then times that times 0.8, for example. And that's going to be your number. And then, of course, when you anchor, you're going to want to anchor much higher. I hope that helps. I had some technical problems on my remote on-site interview. On one interview, my internet connection was interrupted. On 2 of my other interviews, stopped hearing me. Can Google offer me more interviews? You can ask. One of the things that I always recommend, and I know that this is tough because times are tight and money's getting tighter for a lot of people, but I always recommend before interviews, if we're in the interview processes, like if we can, if it's available to us, we pay the extra money to really speed up our internet. We go do the interviews at a friend's house, a family member's house. We always, if we know that there's going to be any Wi-Fi issues, we got to get in front of that as much as we can. Now, I don't know if that's the case. You just had pockets that day, which also happens. If we want to really overcome this, you can go on Amazon and everybody for interviews, you can hardwire in. For most of us, we can still hardwire in. I know we don't want to do it. I was living in Mexico a little while ago, almost a couple of years ago now, and there were a couple locations where I just hardwired in. I just had to do it there, so just something I recommend. But yes, I would always ask your recruiter, just ask, hey, can we get more interviews? I had serious internet issues that day. HC approved me as an early career immersion L3 new grad, but no more headcount. Recruiter advised me to reapply and reach out in 6 months. Yeah, Peter, it's a positive sign. It's just a bummer because it's a lower level position. So it is a positive sign that you did well, and put that date in your calendar 6 months out and make sure you reach out in exactly 6 months. Just a data point, followed up with the recruiter, G, SWE, L5, and here's what she replied. Still no update. We're hoping to have more clarity next week. Okay, thanks so much. We're hearing a lot next week. So let's stay patient and we'll see what's happening. Okay. Thanks for the kind words. Croatia has strong tourism. There are lots of towns to visit for Xmas. If you're planning a visit, feel free to reach out for a recommendation on what tourist traps to dodge. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I'm worried other candidates might get hired before I do have a chance to finish my interviews currently in round 1. What are my options? Don't worry about that. That's totally outside of your control. All you can control is crushing the interviews. That's it. If you bring that concern and we're future thinking and bringing that anxiety in, it's not going to help us. All you can focus in on is what's in front of you. I think a lot of people know on these lives, I focus a lot on the science and psychology because so much of having interview success is mindset. And I've done a lot of research on this, even though it's not my true expertise, right? But you can't control that. Control practicing and prepping as much as you can. Giving feedback to recruiter. Are you sure it won't hurt you? My survey came out before my start date and I'm still talking to them about onboarding. Well, they can't tell who it is. They don't have your name. There's no name attached to it. They can see the feedback. So to protect yourself, if you want to give some generic feedback as opposed to something very specific where they're going to know it's you, but generic and specific enough where they maybe couldn't identify that's you, they do not see your name. And it's a confidential survey. Now, of course, there were some candidates that would give me feedback and I'd say, oh, okay, well, that was Bob. Like clearly he was upset about X, Y, or Z. Obviously, I stayed pretty on top of it. And so I was pretty fortunate not to have a ton of negative feedback in my time there. But sometimes I was able to tell and sometimes I wasn't. So if you're a little worried about it, just keep it slightly more generic. Just a data point followed up with the, okay, cool. Got that one. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I'm worried other candidates. Okay, we answered that one. Okay. Yeah, so I definitely answered this question. I can't answer the question because it's, and like I want to do this in the kindest and friendliest way, but I can't tell you what job you should be looking after because that's all about you. And you should be identifying positions that you think are a great fit. There's so much in here that I couldn't just say, okay, all these things look like X. All these things could be many different job opportunities. And that's great. It seems like you have a really great background, but giving you a specific position to go after, I can't, because that's really based on what you want, what are your desires, what are your goals, etc. What are you most passionate about? So I know it's not a great answer, but that's going to be the best advice I can give. Thank you, Jeff. First time joining the live session. Thank you for being here. If I get a last minute conflict, can I reschedule the interview? Yes. Make sure that conflict is more important than the interview. Interviewers don't get mad, meaning like I'm Jeff, I'm your interviewer, and I find out 15 minutes before the interview that the interview is canceled. I'm not like, no, I didn't get a chance to interview them. I just basically am like, oh, the gift of time. Now I can work on that project. Now I can answer some emails. Now I can go grab a lunch today. So yeah, don't worry about that. I would just say, is the thing really that important that you would want to cancel? Just because it's a little funky right now, so less canceling if possible. Very broad question. As I said, I'm starting career. Do you have any advice on what direction to develop within digital marketing? I do not. Digital marketing is that's a bit of a beast, right? So like, what are you most passionate about in the digital marketing space? Like, what are you really passionate about and what are you good at? Because like so much of people, they're like, do your passion, follow your passion. It's like, well, I think I wasn't super passionate about interviewing and negotiating, but the more I did it, the more passionate I became, because you see, I became more of an expert. I did more research. I did more sessions. So find that balance. The most interesting thing in marketing now is like, generalists don't exist anymore. Everybody's niche down. So find your niche and get really good at that niche, and you will kind of separate yourself from others. Would you anchor TSC L4 Mountain View? Okay, thank you. Specific details, TSC L4 Mountain View. I'm probably going to anchor in the high 2s to low 3s for that role. Probably will roll out around 240, 250 year one, maybe a little bit higher. But yeah, so high 2s to low 3s. Thanks for doing the session. Really appreciate everything you do for us. My question, when you mention anchor numbers, so you typically include base bonus or total package? Total package. I'm always anchoring on everything, and I'm always, for Google, giving you a year one number. Because when they started front loading equity, they only focus in on year one, so we're only going to focus in on year one. Don't worry about the 4-year average. You'll get promoted. You'll get great refreshers. But I always anchor on total. I'm talking about everything all in. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate your feedback on weekly videos. Thank you so much for being here. Applied SWE L4, had applications closed, but then interviewed on site as an L3 on the 29th. Still haven't heard a peep. Okay, just follow up again. Followed up with them on August 2nd. Okay, so it's been 8 days. Follow up again. Phone screen was a week ago. Recruiter placed me as a SWE L6 without telling me, and I should be at an L4 or L5. Interviewer gave me a thumbs down. Are L4s being hired this year? What should I do next? Yeah, that's weird that they would put you at such a high level if you weren't qualified for that level. You might want to follow up. Are L4s being hired this year? We'll know more next week, probably. I think some 4s, but 3s and 4s will likely be a little bit deprioritized, I think. Just happened to hop on and noticed you're live. Wanted to give you a huge thank you. I used all your videos and accepted a incredible job with MedDevco. Started 2 months ago. I'm so happy. Awesome. Congrats. Thank you so much for showing up. yeah, it's kind of funny. People are like, oh, Jeff's live. And it's, obviously we can watch these later on, but it's always really, really fun to interact. So thanks for letting us know. Congrats. Question keeps disappearing. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've seen it before. How would leveling work if you left a FAANG company and came back a couple of years later? Is this something you just ask the hiring manager? Look, if you have a couple of years of great additional experience, you should expect to be at that next level. One level up would just be where I would expect you to be if you've left for 2 years. I never thanked you for my Google offer. Okay, I got it before the hiring freeze. Your content helped me. Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've been going through it a lot on the Slack group. Lots of questions, but your questions were great. And obviously, the thing I love about the Slack group is that gives people an opportunity to see what questions are coming up all the time and like how I engage and interact. So absolutely. Most of my availability was from 12 to 1 p.m. Was that a bad idea? I don't want to take away from somebody's lunch, but I'm really busy. Okay, so what's this study? I think this community, some of you in here will know it. It was like judges and parole. And there's like this crazy study, and I don't think it was done in the US. I think it was done, I can't remember the country. If anybody knows, chime in. But basically what was happening is that like people were coming up for parole, and judges, like the data showed that judges were much more likely to approve like an appeal or parole if it happened early in the morning. But the closer it got to lunch, without a doubt, like the numbers, the no's came in because people got cranky because they were hungry. So if you're doing the 12 to 1, maybe they haven't had a chance to grab lunch yet. So you could get somebody who's a little bit like calorie deficient. So it's just something to keep in mind. You could push it to 12:30 or 1, maybe that would be a little better. I know it's kind of a silly recommendation, but just something to consider. It's a really, really interesting case study. You're welcome. At the team matching stage, I hear that almost means I'm guaranteed a job. Is that true? It's absolutely not true. Even in a good economic landscape, at least a third of the people are not team matched at all. So it is absolutely not a guarantee. You have to be matched with a team, and sometimes at the team match stage, they'll take a risk, meaning like you're good, but you're still a borderline candidate. So you not only have to find a team, but they have to think your packet's going to get through. So that's not your scenario. You might have a great opportunity to get hired, but it's not almost guaranteed. That's the percentages are not almost, and the almost guaranteed to me would be like 95%, and it's definitely not that high. Thank you. Your content is so valuable. Thanks for being here. How do I ask the hiring manager the goals and objectives needed to be achieved during the probation, the interview, and job offer? That could be a great question. Like, what have you really enjoyed seeing in some of your new employees as success metrics or marks? Like, what does success really look like in the first few months of this role? So take a really, really positive lens on that question. You are welcome. Surprisingly, job counts are increasing on Google Careers. About 15 jobs were posted while we were on this live session. Yeah, and remember, there's so much that goes into posting jobs, like attrition. It's just, we never, like, I feel like the last couple of weeks we've talked a little bit more about this, but just natural attrition. People are going to leave these companies, even these big tech companies, they're going to leave. So just attrition alone is going to add in new jobs, not to mention other things. But thanks for that data point. Really helpful. Yep, absolutely. What are some of the red flags I should look out for at the interview when visiting the workplace? Oh, well, how many companies are actually doing in person? I don't really know. Flags to look out for: if people look genuinely upset, if people aren't friendly and kind, don't interact and engage with you. If you hear lots of yelling, those would be a few flags. I got the Google candidate survey. In case my last application is closed, will you have a good chance of getting in? Yeah, your recruiter's not responding. Okay, so this was the situation, you haven't heard back for a month. So you get that survey. So again, in the part of the survey that talks about the recruiter, why am I getting the survey? Like I think we can consistently say that across the board. Why am I getting this survey? It's my understanding I get this survey if my application was closed. I interviewed and never heard back. What is going on? And your recruiter will feel the pain of that comment. Trust me. Sorry, it sucks. What is a good anchor? L4, product marketing, manager and ads, Atlanta. So Atlanta's a tricky market, obviously. I've seen the pay go up a little bit. I would still be anchoring in the higher twos. I would expect to make in kind of that 220, 230 year one, maybe a little bit more. But something in that, like 225-ish. But you can anchor into the high twos. Is it a deal breaker if the HM says they're short staff and want you to start ASAP? Specifically, is the risk in taking the offer? It's sweet roll, 10-year-old startup with funding. Is it a deal breaker if the HM says they're short staff? I mean, you can always, if they like you and they want you to start, just try and negotiate that start date. I think that's what you're asking. If you don't want to start right away, like, remember, you're in the power position. They want to hire you, but don't push it out too far. I hope that helps. How do I determine at the interview if some employees will be helpful with my skill set issues for the job? We don't know until we start. So when we start, we identify the people who are going to be the most helpful, and we don't overwhelm or burden them. We bucket our questions, and I really like bucketing. So not just question here, question there. It's like you get to the end of the day and you don't have anything that's really stopping your work and saying, hey, I have these 3 questions. Can we cover those at the end of the day? But you're not going to know until you start. Hi, Jeff. Had my last on-sites last week. Recruiter said he'd hear back from the HM on Monday, but still haven't heard back. Follow up today. How do I negotiate the salary for a job offer? Do I need to provide details? Well, you negotiate typically with an all-in anchor. It depends on the company. So is it base, bonus, stock? Like, hopefully you have some of that data. And then negotiating is all about being gracious and kind. We're being very gracious, kind, empathetic, understanding that negotiation is tough on both sides of the coin. And then we're anchoring high. Go as high as you can without feeling like you're risking the job, okay? And you need to be careful. High anchors at big tech companies are very easy. They're not going to run for the hills. But if it's more of a startup, be careful with the anchor. But those are my 2 biggest suggestions. Obviously, I have a ton of videos on negotiation that I recommend you watch to get some of the fundamentals and basics down. If non-remote is a deal breaker for me due to family circumstances, should I apply to non-remote roles and try and negotiate if I get an offer? It feels like I'm wasting time. Yeah, I mean, I think like I just want people to have so much confidence going into the interviews that they're going to be loved so much that they will be able to negotiate remote. Or that if you have a family, how do you make that sacrifice to say, look, I can come out there for 3 months, but after that, if it works, can we go remote? So I want them to love you first, but yeah, I don't want you to waste time either. So it's finding that balance. And obviously, if you can prioritize applying and interviewing for remote roles, obviously that would be a benefit. In New York City, awesome. What is the typical anchor for AVPs? Well, that would depend on level, role, sorry, not the role, it's AVPs, but it's location and level. Those will be huge determining factors. Otherwise, it's just too broad of a question. Hey, I'm about to interview at Google for a suite. It's my 3rd try. The first time I made it to committee, the second time I didn't. How much do my previous interviews matter? Well, they matter in the sense that you've obviously done some things well if they're giving you a 3rd chance. Obviously, we know you made it to committee the first time. So they will take those into account if you make it back to hiring committee. But don't worry about it. Again, we can't go backwards. So we can only go forward. So just focus in on crushing these interviews, practice and prep more than you have the last 2 times. And that's the only way where you can guarantee more success. Okay, good luck. Let us know how it goes. A recruiter informed me that there'll be 6 interview sessions, but will not proceed until I disclose how I'm currently making and comp expectation, but refused to give me a range. Is this normal? All right, TJ, come right back to us. You're here. You just made this comment 1 minute ago. Where is the job located? Because if you ask for the salary range in a state like California and they don't provide that, that's actually illegal. You can share that with them. They are required to provide the range if it's in a state like California. So let us know. But it sounds like this is more of a startup. Okay, so tell us a little bit more. I heard 180K all in year 1, L4, LPM. Is that reasonable? You heard 180K. Yeah, but with a good negotiation, yeah, 180K is the baseline. But with a good negotiation, you should be able to get up to that 220-ish mark, right? And therefore, I would be anchoring if they said 180, anchor at 268 or 274, maybe not into the high twos, but go at that kind of 100K ish or more, or not, no, less than 100K, but still reasonable, but definitely into the twos. Okay. That job can pay into the twos for sure. Is hiring committee the same thing as team match? It's not. Hiring committee is a group of your like peers in similar roles that are looking at your feedback and determining whether you move forward to the next step. If you're a clear-cut hire, you will skip this part of the process. So right now, probably about 60 to 70% of people going through will go through HC, and then there'll be that select third that don't go through it and skip it. But it's definitely a bar that you have to get through. Also, you have 8 years of experience as a SWE, but you're not comfortable with system design interview and you would prefer an L4 position. Is that going to hurt? No, if you want to go after an L4, just let them know. Say, I don't want to do system design interviews, so let's target L4. They should work with you on that. Hey, Jeff, what should I anchor for product ops? Can't do it with that level. So there's 2 lingering questions. Let me do this. There's 2 lingering questions. So the ABP anchor, location and level, and then on this one as well, let's do level, okay? And then I can give those answers. So let me roll through. I actually am going to go into a sum up because we went on for another half an hour. My name is Jeff H. Site. Practiceinterviews.com is the platform. If you type in the code ACE, A-C-E, you'll get $100 off. Special offer today on the interview mastery course. It's available till 11:59 Pacific time PM today. If you like what we did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, and new content videos every other Tuesday. Would love to know what you guys think about YouTube Shorts. If you find them valuable, not valuable, be super helpful. That's it. Thank you so much for being here. I'll be back next week, and I'm going to answer any last minute questions that come in. In the approval, when free chance to move on response, keep following them. We're about L3s and L4s, no problem. We'll probably have really good data on next week. Once again, thank you. I'm not